What if a car wasn't made to please, but to break the limits of what's possible? Not to seduce shareholders, not to shine at a car show, not to be faster. No, just pure mechanics, no compromise, with a clear goal to build the best car in the world. And by the end of the video, you'll understand why every word I just said matters. Because nothing, absolutely nothing was left to chance. No turbo, no assistance, just a driver in the center, a screaming V12 and a carbon chassis prepared to perfection. But what nobody knows is that the McLaren F1 almost never saw the light of day. If it weren't for one detail, the project could have disappeared. And the craziest part is, it wasn't even designed to break records, it crushed them by accident. A car capable of beating Ferrari, Porsche, or even Lamborghini all at once. And yet practical enough to go on vacation with 2 suitcases in the trunk? That's more than just a car. That's what happens when brilliant engineers, driven by the same passion, are given free rein to create what many still consider today to be the greatest car in history. This is the McLaren F1. Let me take 2 seconds of your time, but think about leaving a like. It really helps the channel a lot, and if you're feeling even crazier, you can even boost the video. It doesn't cost anything, but since this is my comeback after more than 6 months of struggle, it can only help me. For those curious, I explain what happened at the end of the video, and don't forget to subscribe, non-subscribers. Anyway, let's get back to it. But what is a fast car? No, a real fast car.
He's looking to find a way through.
A car that roars, expresses itself, built mainly for speed. At the end of the 80s, European supercars inspired dreams, but were far from perfect. And you'll see that all these flaws will spark a revolution coming from a country, I must say, unexpected. And the worst part is that everyone was making the same mistake. Whether it was at Ferrari with the F40, an icon that is still quite questionable in terms of reliability, or at Lamborghini, the Countach remains a dream machine. But its driving complexity, its brutality, and its archaic style leave the door open for new models. Even the Porsche 959, though futuristic with all-wheel drive, failed to make its mark during this time. All these cars have one thing in common, I call it the PPP, power, passion, problems. And yes, they cost a fortune and require a lot of resources to maintain. But in the end, isn't that what the customers are looking for? When they buy this kind of car, they know it. They want a powerful car. And above all, to be part of the very exclusive group of owners of these Italian brands, mainly based on image and status, at least until 1990. Because on the other side of the globe, a car is about to humiliate the Europeans and shake up all the rules of the game. The Honda new sports car experimental aluminum chassis, incredible reliability, surgical precision, and above all, fine-tuned on the track by Ayrton Senna. It breaks all the rules, offering the thrills of a supercar while being easy to drive, reliable, and comfortable. And in a few moments, you'll understand why this Japanese car was the reason for a radical change at McLaren. Before understanding how a supercar like this exists, let's revisit a time when everything seemed already won. That's exactly when everything is about to change. McLaren, at the end of the 80s, wasn't just an F1 team making nice red and white single-seaters. No, it was the benchmark. They have everything: the drivers, the engineers, the ideas, and above all, one single obsession: to dominate. In 86, they're already at the top. Alain Prost clinches his 2nd consecutive title. And not with just anything, but with the MP42C powered by a Porsche V6 turbo. Despite that, a threat is growing in the shadows, because Williams, thanks to their partnership with Honda, is starting to become even more terrifying. By the way, in 87 McLaren struggles a bit more, Prost is still there, still just as good, but it's no longer enough. The Technics d'Avant-Garde Porsche engine is losing ground to the Honda Turbo. Everyone knows Honda is about to become the top engine manufacturer. And that's when Ron Dennis, director and chief executive officer of McLaren International, understands something fundamental. They need to change. He wants Honda, and he's going to get Honda. Dennis is especially going to bring in a rather unique engineer, a brilliant guy, someone obsessed with detail, Gordon Murray, the technical genius behind the wildest Brabhams of the 80s. Yes, you know who I mean. The madman who put a fan on the back of an F1 car to stick it to the ground, which was banned after the first race. And yet, it's this guy who will become the key to McLaren's most ambitious project. 88, that's their year. McLaren lines up Prost and Senna, and it's literally the perfect season. Out of 16 races, that's 15 wins. The MP44 is a missile. It's simple, McLaren is at the top. And yet, it's not this car that will leave the biggest mark on McLaren's history. But when you've won everything in F1, worked with the best engineers, and had access to top engine builders, and you've just built a car that blew everyone away, well, you asked yourself a question. What if we went even further? This question, though so simple, will trigger the creation of the craziest car of all time. On September 4th, 1988, on the evening of the Italian Grand Prix, in a very important person lounge at Milan Linate Airport, 4 men are about to unknowingly change the history of the automobile. Ron Dennis, the head of McLaren Racing, Gordon Murray, the genius engineer, Mansour Ogier, shareholder and financier of the Techniques d'Avant-Garde Porsche engine development, and Creighton Brown, the commercial director, are discussing cars while waiting for their flight. McLaren is dominating the season in F1 and Dennis is thinking about diversifying the brand. Gordon Murray then throws out his crazy idea. What if we build the best sports car in the world? Not for competition, no. The ultimate road-going grand touring with no regulatory constraints, no budget limits or marketing compromises. If you prefer, the goal is to create the perfect car. And you'll see that this lack of limits will lead to some completely absurd choices, at least for that time. The project is immediately approved, and McLaren decides to create a dedicated division, McLaren Cars. But saying yes is easy. Actually doing it is a whole different story. Who's crazy enough to take on such an insane challenge? Gordon Murray is naturally appointed as project manager, and he teams up with designer Peter Stevens, the man behind the Lotus Esprit, to design its lines and interior. By the way, Murray, if you haven't quite figured out what kind of person he is yet, he's a bit of a genius. He's obsessed with detail, and he quickly sets out to write a technical manifesto listing the non-negotiable features that this future hypercar must have. The requirements are so extreme that they will make the project almost impossible. And that's when reality catches up with you, because on paper everything is perfect, but in real life a mechanical project never goes as planned. Now that we have the parts, let's see how far Gordon took his wild idea. And believe me, among these rules, there's one that nobody saw coming. The first one is simple and completely crazy. The car must weigh less than 1,000 kilos when empty. And keep in mind that all its competitors at the time weighed between 1,300 and 1,600 kilos. This hunt for every single kilo is something we'll see throughout the entire development. The second constraint is the width. It must not exceed 1.8 meters in order to ensure agility and stability. Oh, and the center of gravity needs to be ideally placed between the wheels for perfect balance. Murray is looking for something unique. This car isn't designed for racing, it's made for the road, and it has to be able to drive hard and fast. Or simply be used to go buy bread. That's the philosophy of the McLaren F1. Extreme, but usable. A perfect car means pure driving experience. So, no electronic assistance, no ABS, no traction control, no power steering. The driver has to feel the car, to be connected to it. And believe me, we'll talk about it later, but that's what will make the F1 only usable by people who know how to drive. Murray wants to create a real car for enthusiasts, a machine for purists, and he just might have succeeded. To make sure he stays true to this philosophy, Murray is going to make a completely crazy choice. Another feature that, at first glance, might seem bold and original, the McLaren F1 will be a 3-seater with the driver in the center. Inspired by race cars, this central position offers perfect visibility and balance for driving. This position even corrects the flaws of other sports cars. In mid or rear engine cars, pedals are often offset right to accommodate the transmission tunnel. This time, no worries, the driver will have an ideal driving position. And that's not all. Murray insists on one last point, and it's going to sound crazy to you. The McLaren F1 has no goal for top speed or acceleration. Unlike Ferrari, Lamborghini or Porsche, McLaren isn't trying to make the fastest car in the world. They don't care about that. They're aiming for something else. The driving experience, the quality, the perfect balance, the thing that makes the car timeless. And what's fascinating is that this philosophy, which went against the grain of the 90s, would paradoxically give birth to the fastest car of its time. But we'll get to that. Okay, let's try something together. Close your eyes. Yes, really, trust me for a couple of seconds. Imagine a Formula 1 car. Got it? Now focus on the chassis, that ultralight backbone that handles 1,000 horsepower and over 300 kilometers per hour. What do you see? Carbon fiber. Now look at the market in the early 90s and name a production car using these technologies. Come on, I'll help you out a bit. The Jaguar XJR15. But in 88, when the idea for the F1 comes up, no car is equipped with it yet. And now, you start to understand the scale of the madness. Because Murray, still with his goal of getting under 1,000 kilos, when empty, is ready to give it his all. To the point where every single screw is studied. In fact, it's not steel, like usual, but titanium that's chosen for the screws, because it's stronger and lighter. And the first real step to overcome this challenge is adopting a carbon fiber monocoque chassis that weighs only 100 kilos. But carbon fiber is just level 1. Let's move on to step 2, materials used in aerospace. Yes, that's right. To take off, a rocket produces a certain amount of heat at the engine level, because the goal is to propel an 800-ton object all the way into space. Steel quickly loses its mechanical strength before it even melts. That's why Inconel alloy is used everywhere. And what gets relatively hot in a car? The exhaust. So yes, the 4 catalytic converters in our McLaren are made of Inconel. And that's not even the craziest thing about this car. Just wait until you see what's coming with the engine. But before that, let me introduce you to this little gem. No automated gearbox, no paddle shifters, no. A 6-speed manual designed in collaboration with Weissman Transmissions. The engineers wanted it to be ultra fast and uncompromising in terms of feel. So, short, crisp, and precise shifts. The goal? To get the driver involved with every gear change. Well, we're still missing a major part to get this supercar moving. The engine, which also has to meet a very specific checklist. Before we get to that, let's finish with the aerodynamics. This car lacks a spoiler. Not because it looks bad, but due to another rule and challenge set by Gordon. Peter Stevens spent over 1,000 hours in the wind tunnel to perfect the design. The subtle lines and flat underbody create ground effect. We're nearing aerodynamic perfection. In the end, it's 1,138 kilos. So, 627 horsepower for a lightweight, which means a ratio of 550 horsepower per ton. So, no, Murray didn't want to break records, he just wanted the perfect car. Except that by always aiming for perfection, sometimes, just sometimes, you can end up creating a historic accident. And the real question now isn't, did we succeed? No, it's more like, how do you make an engine worthy of such a chassis? This is the point of no return, because without an engine, the McLaren F1 simply doesn't exist, and Murray knows this very well, so he sets the rules once again. The engine must produce 100 horsepower per 1.5 liters of displacement, with a target of 550 horsepower. The required configuration is a V10 or V12 capable of exceeding 7,500 revolutions per minute. And above all, naturally aspirated, no turbo, no supercharger, nothing that would filter or distort the driving experience. And as if that wasn't complicated enough, a maximum of 250 kilos. So that's our set of requirements. Now we need to find someone crazy enough to meet them. The first obvious choice is none other than Honda, the team's engine supplier, and above all, the creator of the variable valve timing and lift electronic control, which was installed in the new sports car experimental Gordon's favorite car. Except they refused. Honda doesn't want to create an engine that would compete with its own supercar, which is understandable. So Murray turns to Ferrari, a symbol of passion with the V12 in its DNA, and once again, a categorical refusal. And even if Murray never really admitted it, the reputation for reliability probably didn't help him insist. So, second wall. And at this point, the project seriously starts to get complicated. But when everything seems to be going in the wrong direction, Murray pulls out an unexpected card. Isuzu. Yes, the manufacturer of four-wheel drives and utility vehicles. But actually not quite. Isuzu. They had already worked on a V12, the P799WE, an engine developed as a technological showcase, not much used in competition, but which, on paper, ticked a lot of the boxes in the manifesto. For the first time, there's real hope. Except this time the blockage comes from within. Ron Dennis refuses. That's it. It's too risky. The company hasn't proven itself enough yet. And when you're designing a car that's supposed to revolutionize the automobile, well, you can't afford to make mistakes. So doubt starts to set in. Who will be able to take on this challenge? Gordon decides to contact Paul Roche, whom he had worked with in the past. And if you prefer, Roche is the engine wizard at BMW Motorsport. He is credited with the explosive turbo 4-cylinder engine of the Brabham, the Formula 1 champion in '83, and the famous inline 6-cylinder of the M1. And the 4-cylinder engine of the M3E30. So when Murray presents the project to him, well, Roche doesn't back down. On the contrary, he's motivated. He will even exceed expectations, because instead of a V10, he proposes a 6.1-litre V12, producing 627 horsepower. The S70/2 is a masterpiece, even surpassing the goal of 100 horsepower per litre. To house this mechanical gem and manage its heat output, McLaren went all out, lining the engine bay with 24-karat gold foil to insulate the heat from the V12. They were even equipped with Vanos, BMW's version of variable valve timing and lift electronic control, so they could be tame at low revs and scream at high RPMs. In the end, it's 266 kilos, so 16 kilos overweight. A detail for us, but a nightmare for Gordon. Alright, the chassis is ready, the aerodynamics are mastered, the gearbox is a work of art, and now the engine is here. This time, it's certain the last piece of the puzzle has just been put in place. And what comes next? No one, absolutely no one saw it coming.
Lamborghini, Ferrari, and Porsche, they all make prestige sports cars that cost a fortune, and now they have a rival. It's flashy, very fast, and also very expensive.
What better place than the Monaco Grand Prix to debut the championship-leading team's supercar? When it came out, it was a shock. No other supercar could compare. The performance is insane, yes, but the most incredible thing isn't even that. Because for a world first, this car is comfortable, docile, almost normal. Come on, take a seat. I'll let you settle in the center. There you go. Adjust your seat, buckle up, and I invite you to start the car. Well, today we're not going to buy bread. We're heading to the high-speed roads. Shift gears with the 6-speed gearbox. Short, sharp, precise shifts. No paddles, just you, connected to the machine. Now, it's time for you to accelerate, to see what this V12 has in store for us. No turbo lag, no weird behavior. Just a violent but clean rise in revs. Yes, it's normal to be stuck to your seat. You just went from 0 to 100 in 3.2 seconds. Wait, before we go any further, I want to tell you something. Because what you just experienced, for some people, is just their everyday life. Thomas Bischer, an owner who uses it every day for his trips between Cologne and Frankfurt, one day decides to take it in for a service. Something ordinary. The mechanics collect the data, plug in the engine control unit and freeze in front of their screen. The guy was regularly reaching 320 kilometers per hour to get to work. Yes, almost every day. But actually, that sums it all up. Because the F1 is not just a technological showcase, it's a car so well designed that it could be both docile, usable, and comfortable, and also capable of delivering serious performance when you ask it to. That's the real challenge, and that's the real achievement. The carbon, the chassis, the Inconel, the wingless aerodynamics, all of that isn't just for show. It was to create a feeling, and that feeling is about to go down in history. On the road, very few customers will ever have the chance to push their F1 to its limits. But for McLaren, one thing is clear. What was designed without compromise must now definitively prove its technical superiority on all fronts. Because at this level, sensations are no longer enough, a demonstration is needed. On March 31st, 1998, McLaren goes to an almost unreal place, the private test track at Aerodynamics in Germany. 9 kilometers of straight line, the perfect place to answer just one question: how far can the McLaren F1 really go? The car used isn't a special marketing version, it's a development prototype, chassis experimental prototype 5, an F1 almost identical to the one delivered to customers. Only 2 adjustments, a slightly increased engine speed to allow for a few extra revs, and the catalytic converters removed to fully unleash the V12's power. At the wheel, one man, Andy Wallace. A seasoned British driver, used to absurd speeds. He takes off, the BMW V12 roars, the F1 stretches out, hugs the ground, and devours the asphalt. The straightaway rushes by, the sight of the fir trees speeds up at a pace the eye can barely follow, and then the number appears. Wait a second, before I give you the exact number, you need to understand what it represents. At the time, the record is held by the Jaguar XJ220, a supercar already considered monstrous. The McLaren F1 doesn't just beat it, it destroys it. 243 miles per hour. 23 miles per hour more than the Jaguar.
That was quite fast that time. That was 391.
By the way, the speed of this officially recognized record is 386.4 kilometers per hour. And this record will stand for more than 7 years. It will only be broken in 2005 by the Koenigsegg CCR and then by the Bugatti Veyron. Well, as a result, 27 years later, it still holds the speed record for a naturally aspirated production car. And honestly, with today's pollution, noise, and safety standards, it's very likely that this record will never be broken. But what nobody had really anticipated was that a car capable of that couldn't stay off the tracks for long. It turns out that the fastest car in the world was also a damn good race car. But in their internal vision, well, that's not really the goal. Ron Dennis is adamant, this car will never race. And Gordon Murray himself says it, the F1 is not made for racing. But did he really anticipate what was going to happen? Very quickly the pressure rises, not from the media, but from the customers. And finally, McLaren gave in '95 with the McLaren F1 Gran Turismo racer adapted for the Grand Touring, one regulations of the time. And honestly, it was a bit of clever tinkering. They lightened the car by about 100 kilos, put on a fixed wing with a small roll bar, and spent just one day in the wind tunnel to give it a bit more aero downforce. Yeah, we're far from a multi-million euro program. So it's 9 Grand Touring, ours produced, not created to destroy everything, just to satisfy the customers and bet on the reputation of their model. And yet wait, remember everything we've said since the beginning. Reliability, balance, ease of driving, a car capable of going to get bread. Now, apply all that to a 24-hour race. From its very first races, the F1 Gran Turismo racer dominates the Grand Touring, one category. Ferrari F40, modified Porsche 911, everyone gets blown away. It's so powerful that this McLaren F1 Gran Turismo racer finds itself at the start of the 24 Hours of Le Mans that same year, entered by private or semi-factory teams facing the official prototypes from the biggest brands. But this race is special. First the rain starts to fall, night sets in, and here the F1 is easy to drive, stable in the rain, reliable like a clock. One driver stands out, JJ Leto, former F1 driver, and in the rain he puts together stints so fast that they have to ask him to slow down. Yes, to slow down. By early morning, a McLaren F1 Gran Turismo racer is in the lead. And after 24 hours, it's the McLaren 59, driven by Yannick Dalmas, Masanori Sekia, and JJ Leto that takes the overall victory. Even better, first, third, fourth, and fifth places for a car that was never supposed to race. The man who didn't want to see his creation on the track would later admit that it was pretty special to win Le Mans on the first try with a production car against prototypes. And he actually has one small regret, not driving the winning car all the way to Le Mans and bringing it back on the road after the race. The McLaren F1 wasn't a race car, nor was it a car made to break records. And it wasn't a marketing stunt either. It was simply a straightforward idea taken to the extreme to create the best car possible. And when you do that, sometimes you can change history. Friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for sticking around. For those curious, I apologize for my absence. It was beyond my control. Honestly, I had burnout in August. So, it was impossible for me, for the 4 or 5 months that followed, to sit behind a computer and work on a video. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So, if I have one piece of advice to give you, take care of your mental health, make sure to have at least one day off each week, and take care of yourselves.